The mind can ramble off in strange ways.
You're in for a real treat.
Introducing
Punchlines Podcast.
Your next comic has been on the Jay Leno Show, David Letterman. Please welcome the very funny Mitch Fatel.
Punchlines Podcast.
Oh, that guy's fucking hilarious.
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
All right, welcome back to Punchlines Podcast with world famous comedian Mitch Fatel and kind of known Cory Sanhagen. And our guest now is a good one. We have a all around good guy, Gerald Meerschaert.
How many times are you going to make that introduction like that?
What? All around good guy? I never said that.
You always like make fun of me, or you say something nice about you, and then you make fun of
Mildly famous.
Yeah. You do that every single time. I think
because
people
I'm a
are going to get
comedian.
bored of
I
it.
told
We'll
you-
come up with a new joke, Mr. Comedian.
I told you that you were handsome in the last one.
I don't remember.
Anyway, Gerald Meerschaert, who's one of my personal favorite. Two questions. First of all, are you aware that you're one of the good guys? And second of all, did you ever think of changing the name? Because it's difficult to pronounce.
It's like alphabet soup. I counted it up. Just my last name, it's 11 letters. 7 of them are consonants.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, doesn't make
That's
any
pretty
sense.
Good. That's pretty good. Probably makes the ladies really hot for you, huh?
Yeah, really. So I'm about to get married, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, definitely
How old are you?
helped me. 32.
And getting married at 32, nice.
Yes.
And how long have you been with this particular lady?
A little while, a few years.
Okay.
Long
and
enough.
Why is now the right time?
Just points that we're at in our life.
Uh-huh.
I'm not. Even when I was younger, I wasn't running around all that much, and she's not all for that. And we both got well, I shouldn't say I have an adult job because it's not
an adult
not
job.
normal, but yeah, she has a very busy schedule also, and it made sense.
So you and Cory remind me of the similar kind of guys in that I think if you gave someone 10 guesses, except for the ears, no one would guess you guys are fighters. It'd probably be like, I think you'd get math teacher before you get fighter.
I've gotten fighter a lot more now. It used to be that I wouldn't too much, and now even minus the ears, I'll get it a little bit more. But yeah, I don't come off like a meathead, so that kind of plays into that.
Do you like talking fighting with people that are not familiar with fighting?
No.
No, yeah, me neither, man. Yeah, me neither.
Not at all. It's hard because you gotta explain stuff to them. Sometimes they'll have interesting point of views that you wouldn't have thought, right? Because you need some outside the box thinking to see things in a different perspective. But generally speaking, it's the same 2 or 3 things, and it's like, I understand what you're saying, but you don't say literally this is why you're wrong. But it's like, oh well, this happens because of this, and they kind of get it, kind of don't. You just try to talk about something else.
Yeah, I just let them kind of ramble on and just, oh yeah.
I made it a point when I met Cory, and I had because I wanted to do that because we're geeks because we watch fighting and it looks.
Yeah.
And it's cool, and you have someone who is suddenly you're becoming friendly with. And I'm aware as a comedian that I get the same questions all the time. So I was like, well, the one thing I'm going to do is hope that through these podcasts I start to get all my questions answered. So I don't think I ever ask you fighter questions.
Yeah,
on purpose because I don't want you to feel that But then when we're on the podcast, I feel like I could ask all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
We were just talking before. He had said that. Did you say you personally have a fear of exhaustion, or you said a lot of fighters have a fear of exhaustion?
No, well, I was just saying, no, I don't. I was just saying that that is like a thing in, I think, all sport that sports psychologists have to work with some people, is that they have like a fear of exhaustion and pushing their bodies to a point where it's going to hurt their bodies. And
have you ever fought exhausted?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
And what was it like?
It sucks, but
I feel like every fight is exhausting.
Yeah, in a way. So I did do a 5-round fight before, and I made it. Obviously, it wasn't in the UFC, but I finished it in the last minute of the last round. So we went almost the whole time, and it was definitely different, like a different type of exhaustion. Because what you're saying, there's a lot of instances where sometimes you'll feel really good, and then most of the time you'll feel at some point at least kind of stuck in the mud, and you're not firing on all cylinders until you get in the mix a little bit. And especially till that first exchange happens and you start getting in the groove, like that can definitely happen. And you're like, man, why do my legs feel heavy? All this and that. Like we haven't even done anything yet. And then it'll be okay because you're thinking about fighting for your life. You're not thinking about how tired you are. But that was the one time where, yeah, the 24th minute, man, I was like fighting, but I could still like feel, I was like, fuck, I am tired. This is not fun anymore.
So after the fight, you just had to probably just lay down and.
Yeah, well, I got the adrenaline boost after the fight, not dump, but boost rather, when I won. So I was like happy then. But then, yeah, once I settled down, I was like, everything hurts. I'm going to go lay down for a while.
I've been there, yep.
Do you ever have a fear, I'm going to be too tired to go back in and fight, that I'm just going to say I can't do it? Like,
no.
You never have that fear?
No, I guess I would be afraid that I'll get tired quicker than I think I will or should.
Yeah.
But unless I physically can't move, I'm going to get up and go fight that guy. Like, I'm not, there's no, like, oh, well, I'm tired. I'm not getting off the stool. It's, if I can carry my weight underneath my feet, I'm going to get up. Even if I can't move my arms, I'll freaking headbutt you or something. Yeah. I'll figure it out.
Nice. That would be sweet. You should do that this weekend. Be the first one to just be the most blatant headbutt.
Yeah. And then just turn to Cory and go, that's on you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because we'll be in the audience there.
Mitch will headbutt each other afterwards.
It's like, yes.
Yeah. So is that one of the things that you, as a fighter, start to learn to do to make sure that you're not going to guess that? Because I guess that what's fun for us as fans is when you're watching, there is that point where you think their opponent is hurt, and you're like, no, why don't you just unload on them? What you don't realize sitting at home in the nice, cushy couch is that stuff is tiring, that when people start doing that's very tiring.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of those things where you got to pick and choose your time. And you don't know all the time if they're hurt or not, right? Because in the gym or something, you know how your partners are and how their reactions are. But a guy you're fighting, you've never really seen before. So unless he gives you a really big tell, you're not 100% sure that he's actually hurt or if he's just kind of baiting you. And even if someone's hurt, they could throw a big one and come right back at you and, put you on your butt and you wouldn't even know it. So there's some of that. And like in my last fight, there's a couple points where I wish I would have pushed a little bit more.
Who was your last fight?
Eric Anders.
Okay.
But I was fighting a big puncher, so I'm like, man, I'm winning. In my head, I was winning. I'm outscoring him and I'm hurting him. Why would I run in and potentially put myself at risk? Because anytime you throw your power hand or your open side or like open up and really try to knock someone out, it's a risk, right? You just it's a probability game. How likely do I think I'm going to get caught versus how much damage I'm going to do to them? Right. So you always play that quick. Even the dumber guys, they play a little quick math equation in their head. And they're like, it looks like it's going to be good. I'm going to go for it. If it doesn't, they kind of wait it out.
Yeah, I see that in sports or in other sports all the time where I understand because it's fighting, it's a little bit more entertaining than it is an actual sport. And people want to see blood or whatever. But,
yeah.
I mean, no one really boos when it's the fourth quarter of an NFL game and they take a knee. Or if you're in a basketball game in the last 2 minutes and they're just passing it around the perimeter. Like,
right.
No one ever boos for that. But, yeah, if you were to just run for the last minute of the last round because you know that you won,
right.
Everyone would boo you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like, hey, fuck you guys. Like, I don't want to do this because I could really get hurt, so quit booing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'd said that Eric Anders is a striker, right? He's mainly a striker.
This is what he's known for.
Right, yeah. And you're known for, and this is, I actually did a lot of research on you. You're really good at positions. You're really good at, you have an amazing ability to grapple and to know what position to go into the next position. That's what you obviously really enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is how much of that becomes just muscle memory that you're just, as you're going through it, is it just flowing? Is it just waiting for situations to present themselves? Or are you thinking literally at that point, I hope that he does this and I'm going to do this?
Sometimes there'll be a little bit of thought in there, but usually you just do it so much and you plan ahead of time. It should, like a lot of the new sports psychology books, they say you want to be in that flow state where you're reacting more than you're thinking. Because if you're thinking, you got to take a second to process the information and then execute.
Right.
Whereas if you're just flowing, you're going to it without really. It's not that you're not thinking, but your body's moving already, and you don't have to take that split second to do something else.
Okay.
Is that what you? That's what you shoot for then?
I shoot for that.
No
yeah.
thought. Yeah, the no
right.
thought type of mind. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So a good example is pretty much the way your brain works when you're going to execute some kind of physical anything. It works in cycles. So you have to like observe something, process the information, tell your body to like execute it, and then go through with it. So if you interrupt that cycle at any point, you got to restart from the beginning. Doesn't matter who you are. So you're either going to make them observe and reassess again, or they're just going to cower and ball up and go to a completely defensive position that'll be like complete fight or flight. So like I was talking to a black belt buddy of mine who like he does a lot of stuff with like training police officers and different stuff like that. So that's what they teach them is like, you know, when you watch, so he gave the example of like boxing. So you see a boxer, like if I'm fighting someone in boxing, every time he steps forward, I jab him. Now I wait, every time he steps left, I jab him. Now every time he steps right, I jab him. So by the third round, he can go backwards and that's it. And he assumes that anytime he steps forward, left, right, he's going to get punched in the face. Because every time he went to move this way, I interrupted his cycle and he had to restart all over again. So if you can put yourself in a position where, you know, anything coming at you, because if I start getting up, like, say, from half guard or something like that, and they put me in a position I'm unfamiliar with and I got to reset and think about it, you know, you take care of all those problems in the gym. So it's not, I don't have to reset. It's just another motion that I have already built in that I just go to that next instead of like, okay, go back to square one and now try it again, because now I'm probably losing or getting past.
Gerald, is that something that you can teach yourself? Can you teach yourself to not let those thoughts seep in and go, okay, so like you were talking about the flow. And I know sometimes if I'm on stage and I'm telling a joke or whatever and it's not landing the right way, I will start to get into my head. And I always wonder if I can get back into that state where I'm just enjoying myself.
Right.
And I wonder, like, can you train yourself to get into that state?
You can try. I think a lot of it too, especially because remember for us, there's going to be a lot of times where you're not there. Like, especially if you're learning something new, right? Because you're intentionally putting yourself in a position where it's unfamiliar, so you're going to have to reset over and over.
Right.
So you just do that so many times. It's kind of like the old saying, you do it wrong so many times to the point that do it wrong so many times, and then when you get it right, that you can't get it wrong. So it's like, I already did it wrong. You know, every position I've been in, and I'll even still let people get me in compromised positions just to work out of it, just because, like, I need to see all different types of looks. So I, like, either mess up myself or I start in a position where I've messed up, 100,000 times. I've already seen 100,000 looks. There's not too much you can do to me that I haven't seen already. Because stuff you haven't seen, you don't want that to happen in a fight, because then you're going to be like, oh, now you got to go back and reset your cycle and go back to thinking about what's going on. And in that case, you're kind of screwed more or less, because if you're not familiar with it, it's like you either got to think about what they're doing or get back to a position that you know you're safe, which either means giving something up or being completely defensive and then hoping that you get a way to get out. And then it's kind of a toss-up. But you can try and stay as relaxed as possible, and there's luckily enough moves, like right in fighting, striking, grappling, anything, where even if I don't know how to advance, there's probably a similar move I can use to get back to square one. So, like, if I can't get back up from half guard, I should at least be able to get back to guard. If nothing else, shrimping and getting back to guard should be better than sitting there and getting beat up.
Yeah, that's what I've always said about fighting, too. It's not about being the best at every single position. It's being the best at making the fight in a way where you're fighting in the best positions that you know you're going to be better than the other guy.
Right.
That's what I mean, because no one's going to be better at everything,
Yeah. And so what can you do before a fight to put yourself in the best position, or have you learned what you need to put yourself in the best position to be in that flow state that you're talking about?
Well, a lot of that, like, as far as the technique, is just training a lot and, like, getting.
Can you overtrain, though? Because I hear a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then, so that's the other thing, too, especially as I've gotten, not old, but older.
No, but you've been in the game a while.
Yeah, I started when I was 19, right? So I've been fighting a long time. And I can remember when I started up until probably 23, 24, you can go hard a couple times a day and not feel anything the next day. Doesn't work like that now. I got to pick and choose the days where I really, step on the gas and, like, spar hard or something like that. And then still, if I want to keep the consistency as far as, like, training, I usually do 6 days a week. It's just, I think about taking the percentage up or down.
Yeah.
So, like, if I have 2 hard days in a row at, like, 90%, I'm going to feel it the next 2 days at least. For sure the day after, and then maybe the day after that. But if I go, say, 90% one day, and then the next day I'm going to go more like 50, 60, and then I come back up to, like, 70, maybe 80 if I'm feeling real good, and then see what the next day is, maybe another 60% day, because you can still get a lot of work in. You don't need to, like, beat the crap out of yourself. I've already done all the Gatorade day training where I'm like sweating and waking up early and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just I heard, was it Liam Harrison talking about he spars a lot less now. He's a really good Muay Thai fighter, kickboxer. He said it's all about training the eyes. It's like as long as I already have these skills developed, as long as I can, like, he'll spar light but play around a little bit and get his eyes working right for, like, defense and all that stuff. And as long as I get my eyes right, I'll be okay.
Oh, that's cool. Do you know that guy personally?
I do not.
God, he's such a badass.
Yeah, he is.
He's a beast.
Oh, is he?
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast.
How come he never did UFC or MMA?
He's a Thai fighter.
Yeah.
That's his style. That's a sport that he likes.
Yeah.
But a freak, bro.
Really?
Yeah, like a freak with how fast he is, how hard he can hit, his timing, everything. He's a freak, that guy.
If you're into Muay Thai, he's like up there at like Ramon Decker's level of toughness.
So the night before a fight, will you have to fight? Will you have to fight going through all the positions in your head when you're going to sleep? Are you able to turn all that off? Meaning that there's also that mental training that you go through. So I'm assuming, do you do any of that envisioning of like, if he does this, I'll do this. If he does this, and then to a point where you have to just turn it off finally?
Yeah, I try to. I mean, especially the night before the fight, you know, you're gonna think about it. You can try not to all you want, but it's gonna happen. So
The program's going to run whether you like it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just a matter of like, I tried, you know, if you train enough and do everything and you're attentive and like you're, you know, if you know you didn't leave any stone unturned in training and you're like, I couldn't have done this better, I couldn't have done more, all that stuff, you'll have a lot more confidence going in, right?
We hear that a lot. It's a preparation. If you do your part.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing in building confidence.
Right.
Just knowing that you did everything that you can. That's
Right.
half of it, for me at least. But
Yeah. And
sorry,
then
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good. And then the other part is like you just gotta try and distract yourself somewhat. So one thing my buddy Ben was telling me is his one of his old coaches, he like had his thing was fishing. So like anytime he would come up to a big competition, he didn't want to be freaking out about it. He would talk to a buddy about fishing and bring one of his buddies along, like to big wrestling meets that was like a big fisher, and they would talk about that or like go do it if they could in the area. Just kind of distract yourself.
Dude, I could give you one of my CDs. It'll put you right out. You'll be out before 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I was playing your new special, and I just,
I just passed out. Yeah, it's just I want to know I'm part of the win. That's all. Yeah, I'm always trying to help.
Yeah. I try to. Some people want to think about it a lot, or like I think if you're gonna think about it, have a designated time, and then try to put it out of your mind. But I try to think about it as little as possible until it's gonna happen, because it's gonna happen either way, and then you worry about it all you want.
I really like that. Yeah. What do you do to distract yourself?
Not just whatever. You know, I have
Smoke crack.
Yeah.
Little crack never hurt.
Hookers, stuff like that.
Lots of hurt. Yeah, just the normal stuff.
Yeah, I got some like video games I'll bring with me on fight weeks, or I'll watch like the History Channel or Discovery all the time, just because it's usually like mundane stuff or the actual shows they have on. Like what do they get? Because in this hotel we got moonshiners on all the time.
Dude, the stations here suck.
Yeah, but it's
They're
like
terrible.
stuff like moonshiners, or I do like American Pickers, but like the moonshiners one is just funny because like most of these reality shows are like almost all fake,
And
right?
it's fun to get lost in them.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know why, but it is.
Yeah, it's fun to go along with it for a little bit. So that's a nice distraction, you know, just walking around and stuff like that. And I'll bring one of my partners that I like, you know, joking around with, and that'll keep it lighthearted, because that's the worst thing in the world is to have a coach or a partner with you that takes it too seriously. It's like, you got to be doing this, got to be doing that. It's like, yo, calm down. I put enough pressure on myself. I don't need you to freak out on top of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, Cory told me a really interesting story. We were talking about one of Cory's. You don't have any losses in the UFC, but you have a loss before the UFC, correct? Yeah, and we were talking, and I said to him, how did you deal with that? And he said, I don't know why, but I apologized to my coach afterwards. And his coach said, like, dude, I'll do this with you forever. Like, I thought that was a really interesting thing that he felt somehow he needed to apologize to his coach. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, you feel like you let your team down, you know what I mean? Because they put so much time and effort into it. And that's a good example of extreme ownership. And like I think most, you know, fighters that are good anyway have that, is where you're like, I know they did everything they were supposed to do. I know this stuff works because I've done it in the gym and I've seen it work in other fights. Clearly it was my fault because I didn't do something. Because remember, you're the one in there fighting, right? So unless they tell you to do some really outlandish stuff that has nothing to do with anything, And
Like, go headbutt the guy.
Yeah, like that. Or kick him in the nuts or whatever it is. Then maybe it's on them, but there again, you have the final say. They can't make your body move for you. So I definitely feel that. I've definitely apologized to some coaches after fights too. And usually when you do, it's unwarranted, but, it's just you feel like you're the one that, and, to a degree you should, but you feel like you're the one that dropped the ball.
Isn't that crazy? I think in a weird sense, you're almost apologizing because you feel you let yourself down and you just need to let it out some way. Does that make sense?
Oh, that too. Yeah. Well, I don't know what you did. You only got one loss, so you're still in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But I got more than a few, and there's been a couple that I feel like shouldn't have been losses, but the ones that I know I lost, like that sucks, and you go eat your sorrows, and you gotta live with that, and hopefully use it for a positive.
Yeah.
So those ones were easier for you. The ones that you lost a split decision were easier for you than, or a close decision or a close fight or whatever, opposed to the ones that you definitely lost? Or are they all just equally as hard?
They suck for different reasons. I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay.
So, like, I know, like, when I've gotten beat and I'm like, I just got beat. Like, it doesn't matter what I say, like, how I was feeling, whatever. Like, so a really good example of just getting beat is I fought Santos.
That was your third fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
Which is a big step up all of a sudden.
He's a large person.
Yeah.
Yes. He's a scary man.
Yeah.
And I fought him, and, like, fight week was good. I was in good shape. Like, takedowns were landing. There was, like, maybe one or two things I could have done a little different. But even after that, I was like, I just fought a big, scary-ass dude, and I got my butt kicked. Like, there's not – like, it sucked because I was like, there's really not anything that I was going to do on that night that was going to change much what was going to happen. And it, like – you try to use it in a positive way, like I said, to train harder and like fix stuff. But that one, like, emotionally and mentally, that sucks. But then the split decision ones, it really is hard to deal with, like, when you feel you've been robbed and you've got your team and other people telling you, like my last fight, I think it was like everyone was telling me I won. Had a bunch of, like, even UFC people been like, yeah, I thought you had it. And there was like they did the media score thing. It was like 14 thought I won, and then like 2 or 3 thought the other guy won. And that sucks because, like, man, I feel like I got something taken from me, but then I, still have to. Part of me is still like, well, it's your job to finish them. Like, if it's not a finish, for a fact it can go either way. So, but that's, I guess it's easier for my pride for that one, but, like, they're both bad in different ways.
Yeah.
You know what's weird about sports, and you guys, I assume also are fans of other sports, so you kind of can understand the feeling. When the Santos fight, you've always been one of my favorite fighters. I've always liked you. There's something about you that I feel, and I think that this is what you do as a fan. You find people that you kind of feel like you identify with, that you're like, oh, I'd get along with that guy, or I like that guy for that reason. And I always liked your personality. I just thought you were just a really chill. You seem to be enjoying yourself, and I always try to. Are you aware of the fact that, like, and because I watched the Santos fight, and I remember I was hurt. Like, do you realize that your fans get that? Like, I was hurt at home, like, oh, like, I felt like that hurt me because I liked you so much. Do you ever think about the fact that not only are you getting hurt personally, but there's fans of yours around the world who almost feel a sadness?
A little bit, yeah. You definitely get it from the people closest to you, right? Because then you got to deal with them like, oh, what happened? Well, what do you think went wrong and all this and that? And then you think about it, and like I saw a couple people in the stands. Might even have been you if you were there, but like you see some like faces hanging down. I'm like, man, like that's what makes it worse. Like apologizing to your coach, because if it was just you, like we win and lose in the gym every day. Like there's no, if there was nobody in attendance and we still got paid the same, and it's like you take a loss, it would still really suck. But I think it wouldn't. You can't say it would matter as much because there's not a bunch of people watching. But that also hurts too, knowing that there are people that like look to you for something, and then they gotta, it is a good thing in a way, like, you see someone that you like fall, and like hopefully they deal with coming back up correctly.
I think
but it still like sucks because now you're still thinking in your head like, man, I let all these people down. Because if it's just you, like, it sucks, but that's one thing. But then you think about all those people, it's like, man, I just ruined someone's day, and I don't even know.
But no matter what, we're all big kids, and I think watching UFC is a little bit like when you're a kid and you read your comic book, and you had your superhero that you loved, and then when your superhero that you loved got like all of a sudden beaten up or whatever. Like it was that sadness that you'd go to bed with. Like, how did Spider-Man lose?
I know.
Yeah.
It hit me one time. I went to a show in Nashville where Wonder Boy and Pettis were fighting.
Yeah.
It was the one where Pettis knocked out Wonder Boy really bad.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving, because it was Nashville and that was like Wonder Boy's hometown or home area, there was this little kid. He was like 11 or 12 years old, and he was bawling his eyes out, dude, with the Wonder Boy shirt on. Like, his whole family had Wonder Boy shirts on, and, like, he was just bawling. And I was like, wow, people actually give a shit about whether we win or lose sometimes. That was a weird feeling for me. I was just like, what? This little kid, like, he really cares enough where it made him that sad to where he cried. That was really weird for me to see.
Are you sure that wasn't me in the stands?
Do you love Wonder Boy?
I do love Wonder Boy, actually. I like all the good guys. I think maybe I just like the good. I think I want to believe in my life, and I think this is what we put into the fights. We always want to believe that the good guy can come out and win.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it hurts you. Although I think that I think Colby Covington made himself into the bad guy on purpose. But I think that there was that's why that fight got so much interest. I almost think Colby knows that. Well, I'll be the bad guy because that'll get all the eyes on me.
Well, there's one thing of like whether you want people to like you, and then there's another thing of whether or not you want people to watch you, and your behaviors, depending on which of those you choose, are going to be very, very different. Yeah. Because if you just want people to watch you, I feel like that's very easy just to say outlandish shit and act crazy, and people will watch you.
Colby's a good example. Like because I've heard from a few people that actually were around people that he would know or something, that he is a nice guy, but he takes everything to the lowest common denominator. Because like I don't know if maybe his promo chops aren't that good, I guess, because you can be a heel and get people to like you too, right? Like, you remember The Rock in like the late 90s? Yeah. He was being a dick to everyone, and that's what made him so endearing. I don't know, like everybody loved him. Like, it was like the craziest thing to see. But then you got Colby, who's like clearly being the heel, but is being so far off on one end that like there's the couple really hardcore Colby fans, just because they're basically like internet trolls now. Like, they're just super contrarians, and they're like, oh, they love it for like the novelty of it, and everyone else is just kind of sick and tired of it, it seems like. Yeah. But it's like, it has nothing to do with the person. He's just so clearly putting on a shtick. Because like even Chael's a good example in MMA. Like, he did that, but he was funny about it. Like, he had,
and there was a glint in his eye the whole time. Yeah. And I don't think it was hateful.
No, I don't think he took it too seriously or made people try to think that. And I don't know if maybe it's just Colby's personality or he has trouble like conveying that. But I
don't think he's a good guy. And the reason why I say that is this, because one of my big starts is I started out as an intern for the Howard Stern show. And that was a really big deal for me. Howard Stern was one of my idols. And I was in high school, and I got out of high school, got into college, got an internship working for him. And he was known. I think Howard Stern's not really your generation, maybe a little your generation, but he was known to be really mean to people, and I mean really mean to people.
Yeah, my parents hated when I would watch that show.
Right. So but his radio show. So I started working for his show, and what I constantly heard was, man, Howard's actually a really nice guy off here. And what I learned is, because I worked behind the scenes, he wasn't a nice guy. He would try to ruin people's careers. He wasn't nice to me. He wasn't nice to anybody on the staff who worked with him. But he knew in order to do what he did, people expect Colby to be Colby when he's just walking around. He can't be that guy walking around because he'll get shot. So when he meets people at parties, he has to put on hey, I'm really kind of a nice guy. But I don't think a nice guy could say the things that he would say. Even Cory, I tried to get him to trash talk, which both of you guys don't do. And even Cory was like, yeah, that would hurt people's feelings. I don't really want to do that.
One quick clarification. I've been talking the most shit before this fight because...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because this dude tried talking to me and coming at me reckless before he even, I guess he would have been signed to the UFC, but before his first UFC fight. And he came, tried talking all this mess to me and whatnot, and was popping off at the mouth. So I've been I made some memes about him and all kinds of stuff, making fun of him for being short and fat. So, full disclosure, I was talking a lot of shit for this fight, but everyone seemed to like it.
Okay, but great. Let's go to that. Do you enjoy doing it? Are you having fun with it?
I am for this one just because I don't really like the guy. Like, that's the thing, though. I'm pretty laid back, and I'm still having fun with that. Like, there's no hate in my heart, but he wanted to poke the bear, so I'm just going to, like, roast him the whole time up until the fight. I might even talk shit to him while I'm punching him in the face. Like, just because I feel like, and I actually just heard from someone today that, like, knew him or growing up. Like, he kind of sounded like he was kind of a bully, which is funny because looking at him, you wouldn't think that physically he could be a bully. You know what I mean? But, I guess he was decent wrestling and all that stuff. So that probably factored into it. But, it makes me, it brings that out of me, that competitive nature and, like, that shit talking. And I don't mind doing it when I don't like the person.
There's sometimes just when people just irk me, too.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm like,
But that's usually your podcast partner.
Yeah,
it's usually me.
Just you know. So, yeah, I could totally relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so are you so I mean, that's something. The reason why it bothers me, first of all, is because you've been around a long time, and I think that you deserve a certain amount of respect. So for someone who comes in without the thing you should be saying about Gerald is it's an honor to fight the guy. He's been around this long. He's done this. He's done this. And it's the disrespect that bothers me about that.
So and that's the thing. I did feel disrespected, and he hadn't even fought in the UFC yet. He hadn't even made 85 yet, which he's only done once because he missed weight the last time. So it's like, I don't know why you're coming reckless at me like this. And pretty much what happened was he didn't have a fighter. Whoever he was supposed to fight fell through. And then I don't know how, but he must have been creeping on my, like, Instagram or something. And I had, like, made one of those posts that pretty sure every fighter in their life has made. They're like, I'll fight anyone, anytime, any place. And I don't cut a ton of weight, so, like, usually I'm down for it. And then they asked me, or not, he didn't ask me, but someone asked my manager at the time about it. I loved the matchup and the fight, and we brought it to my coach, and he didn't want to do it. He's like, well, you're coming off a loss, so I want you to fight someone coming off a loss. And I was like, I really want to fight this dude. Like, he's talking shit to me. I want to punch him in the face. He's like, oh, let's do something else. And then I ended up fighting Trevin Giles instead, which obviously wasn't a bad choice because I choked the guy out. So, I can't really complain about that. And that's one of those things where I'm sure he'd probably still say something about that, but it's like, why am I going to pay my coach and be here if I'm not going to listen to him? So it's like, I just kind of, take the high road, sit on my hands and be like, fine.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, which I don't think a lot of people also think about. I don't even know if the people that are calling certain people out even think about is that, like, at least for me, I come from a team where I allow my coaches to make the decisions for me, where that's usually how it goes. Is you and your coaches agree on an opponent, and then you fight that opponent. It's not this, like, crapshoot of, like, we'll all just fight whoever at any time.
Oh, you don't text each other like, hey, man, you want to fight? Yeah, let's do it.
It's not that
meet at the schoolyard.
Because we're emotionally invested in that, and I'm sure that the coaches are, but not to the same level as us. So it kind of puts us in an awkward spot when that does happen. But a lot of the time, that is what is happening. Is it's like, oh no, our coaches don't want that happening right now, or it's not a smart fight right now because you have to play it smart too. So yeah, but I don't think people really ever think about that.
Corey, you once told me a really funny story that your coach was saying that this is a fight for you, and you were watching the video, and in your head you were like, I don't know if this is really a good fight for
I was coming off of my first loss, and the only video we could find on the guy was him knocking people out cold in the first minute. And I've talked to my coach about this before. I was like, listen, man, don't watch the film in front of me and then try to decide with me. I don't want that. Like, that's your responsibility. If you think it's a good fight, that's your responsibility. But he was like, all right,
he's knocking everyone out. Dude. Like, you want to fight that dude? Yes, of course.
Bro, we sat down just like we're doing now, and he was like, all right, let's look him up. We look him up, and it's just KO, KO, KO. And I was like, he was like, oh, you got this. And I was like, you sure, man? I was like, are you sure?
It's like, I'm pretty confident, but from what you're showing me, unless all those guys really suck, this might be a problem.
I was like, in what second of this were you like, oh yeah, Corey's got it? Like, the guy just knocked everyone out immediately.
Yeah, but then he knew what he was talking about because you had a win. You won that fight,
or he got lucky.
Yeah.
Or we got lucky.
Afterwards, did you tell him? Did you say, like, okay, I guess you were right?
No, and he'll never know unless he listens to the podcast.
Okay. When was the last time you fought someone you didn't like? And how did you do? Because let's look at
Last time would have been fought this kid Sid for Valor fights. And it was like that fight, that LFA
long
fight.
ago.
Yeah, it was so that was like the fight before the RFA fight, rather. And then I got into the UFC, and I never heard of this kid before. He was supposed to fight Joe Riggs, I guess.
Okay.
And Joe Riggs got hurt or whatever it was, and then they needed a replacement. And one of my training partners knew the guy that ran the show, and they offered it to me, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." The kid was like 5-0, and he was just talking all kinds of crap, like. Well, I shouldn't even say him, but all his people around him were really gassing him up. And then when I get there, he's a cocky little shit too. And then it was funny because they're like, "Oh, I was planning on," because he had like their 85-pound belt or whatever, and I didn't really care about some little show's belt, you know. So
That wasn't important to you?
no,
No.
no one cares. Like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like, unless you're gonna pay me more with the belt, then no, I don't care. So I get that we're about a week away from the fight, and they're like, "Yeah, well, I was planning on fighting at this or whatever, because usually fights at 85 is like, so let's catch at 95." I was like, "Fine, whatever." And I get there, and the dude's like small, like small. Like, he's short and he's small, and he looks like a kid still.
Easy, Gerald, easy. You're talking to a guy that's not that big here.
Small for someone who's supposed to fight. Yeah.
Probably about 100.
Weighs 135.
Yeah, well, if you fought or grappled, you'd be at like 125. He's fighting dudes that are 185.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. He's
All
small.
right.
Small in proportion to everybody else. And
I'm
he
used
like,
to it.
yeah, he looks like a kid. He looks like he's, not a day over 20 or 19, and he's
Yeah.
like thinking he's hot shit and stuff. And he wants to like do all this funny, goofy stuff, posing and everything. And then we're in the back. It's not really a locker room, but they have this big space in this event center. It was in not Nashville, I forget, Elizabethton, I think. There's like a big tourist area, and I see him getting sprayed down with something. I don't know if it was oil or just water or what. Standing out, arms, legs spread out, and getting sprayed down with this bottle, like oiled up. And I'm like, "Yo, I can see you. I'm like 20 feet away."
You should have helped oil him up too. You should have just gone over there.
Well, he did all that, and we let the commission know. They wiped him down. He did it again anyway. I was like, whatever.
Wow.
Whatever, dude. And so we get in the cage, and he's supposed to be like this next level boxing kid or whatever. I go to try and take his head off. He backs up right away. I throw a kick, like whizzes past his face, and he must have decided he didn't want any of that anymore. So he shot in. I kind of half-stuffed it for a second. I was like, "Oh, I know you want to go to the ground. Let's go to the ground." So I kind of grabbed his neck. We moved around a little bit, and I ended up getting him in a straight arm lock off my back. So, like, I had a Kimura first, and he tried to roll it out, and I just extended and had it completely straight locked out, and I heard, like, pop, 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 and then he started yelling and tapping. Took, like, minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that. So I almost snapped his arm off.
And you got the belt.
No, I didn't get the belt because it was a catch weight.
Oh, it was catch weight.
Yeah, so he got to keep his belt. And then my training partner, Brendan Allen, actually beat the crap out of him after that, so that's kind of funny. So, yeah, that was the last time I fought someone I didn't
So
like.
at least precedent has it that if you don't like a guy, you're probably going to snap his neck.
Yeah. Snap something for
Yeah,
sure.
you're going to snap something.
Yeah, so you're an OG in the game. For how many fights do you have, Gerald? Like amateur,
I have
everything?
no amateur fights.
Oh, okay. You just went
Well,
straight
that's pretty
pro.
cool. Talk about that.
No, it's not, but yeah. that's called having no, because at the top, when I started and where I started, we had actually guys that had fought in the UFC and a couple guys in the WEC back
Where
in
is
the
this?
day.
Where were you training?
Kenosha is the first place I started.
That's Wyoming or?
No, it's
No,
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yes. Other W.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Wyoming, Wisconsin.
just a lot of farmland.
Yeah. But I was out there, and we had guys that had big show experience and like fought in Japan and stuff like that, UFC, WEC, but no one, they all just started fighting pro, and like we didn't know about amateur fights or any of that stuff. For some reason,
There were no smokers.
even those were pro.
Yeah.
Because they were ran by the guys that own the gym. So that was the thing, is like in Iowa, there was like a lot of amateur, and down south, there's still a ton of amateur fights because they realize they don't have to pay people. Back then, there's no
Right.
regulations pretty much anywhere. They'll give you $300 to go fight a guy, and they'll pull people out of the crowd, stuff like that, and they're still fighting in a ring.
Yeah, that's what MMA was. How long ago was that? Like 15 years ago?
Like 12, 13, it was 2007.
Yeah.
So
I came in like right after all of that is when I kind of started MMA, which
Yeah.
I feel really lucky to have happened because all of my coaches would talk about similar stories, and I was like, yeah, forget that.
it was interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't even know about
So you got paid on your first fight.
Well, this is the messed up part. Is like everything got recorded as a pro fight. I didn't get paid till like my 7th one because at the time. Oh yeah,
man, that's
he was
terrible.
like, oh, you'll train here for free as much as you want, and then you'll fight, and that'll kind of pay for your training. And I don't know any better. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And then I remember telling another one of my coaches that after the fact, he's like, man, you should at least be getting like 300, 500 to fight. Like you're fighting another person. And this was, so it was pride rules, but we could use elbows too. So you could stomp, soccer kick, knee to the head on the ground, elbow everywhere. Like,
I mean, you're lucky to be here right now.
yeah. And I was like 19, snot-nosed kid when I started this, and I was in school to be a music teacher. I had no business doing.
See, I said you look like a teacher. I was right.
Yeah, I had no business doing any of this, but I survived somehow. That's why I'm here.
So, what was your first paid fight? How much did you get?
I think it was only like $320 or something like that.
Was it cash?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course it was cash.
They counted out the cash to you?
Yeah, he just handed me a wad of cash.
Did you feel amazing?
I was like, here's $320. Was that like agreed upon before?
No.
$20 was the bonus. It was Friday of the night.
Well, like, these are local shows, right? And, like, I wasn't selling too many tickets either. So it's like I was training and, like, they would have me fight. I still think I should have got paid every time or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so.
But, yeah, he just handed me some money because it was, like, a good close fight and it went all 3 rounds. He was like, oh yeah, it was a good fight, here's some money. I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
And then all these years later, I'm like, this motherfucker really wasn't paying. Like, I was fighting grown-ass men in there and shit. Like, what the fuck? So my very first fight, where it was at the Marina Shores, the old ballroom, and my opponent walked out first for some reason, and all my friends, like 4 friends there, and they're like, man, I sure hope that's not the guy Gerald's fighting. And sure enough, here comes skinny little me walking out right after him. They were like, oh, shit.
And did you feel fear back then, or were you just too young to even feel fear? Or
No, I was too stupid to know that to be. Yeah, like I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I still had this movie image in my head, like, oh, if I lose, I'll be hurt a little bit, but I'll just get up. And then I didn't get roughed up too bad, actually. Like, I got beat up, but I didn't get any, scars or busted up too much. So I at least protected myself. But once you started getting in there and started training hard with some, professional guys at the time, I was like, oh, this is for keeps. Like, I could not, have the use of something the next day if I don't learn this shit.
Sure. So you had, talking about that you started out and you've been around for quite a while, so you had 23 pro fights before your UFC call-up. That's really rare. So I'm assuming at your 20th, first of all, if you're doing 20 fights and you still haven't been called up to the UFC, do you almost resign yourself? Like, okay, I'm probably never going to be in the UFC, so I'll just keep doing this because I enjoy it? Or do you still keep in your mind, I got to get to the UFC?
I think I actually almost had 30 fights at that point.
Was it?
Yeah. I think. Because not all of them are on, like, official records, but because, like, right now I probably have closer to 40, 45.
You have 45 fights.
I think if I counted all of them, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, even when I think I got in, because I remember, maybe I didn't have quite 30, but I remember it was, like, pretty early on in my UFC career, they said something about that being my 30th win. I'd have to go back and look. But it was definitely, I feel like it was more than 20.
Who was your first UFC fight?
Joe Gelati.
And I know you won it. I remember you winning it. So so that must have been very validating to have been kept out of the UFC for so long. Yeah. Because I guess, is there a sense like, now I'm here, now I really have to win?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we were getting close, like you were saying before, to maybe having to get a good old 9 to 5 because it's...
Wow.
My whole thing was, so I started really young, right? And then you get more than, especially now, you get more than like 2 or 3 losses. It's going to be rough to find your way in there. So my whole thing was, am I getting better? Can I see direct results? And it's, not just from fights, but like I could do grappling competitions just in the gym. Like, if I'm improving my skill set and I know I'm adding new tools and I'm still improving and like still am physically able to fight, then it's not worth giving up on quite yet. And I was getting, because I was about to turn 30 and I was really, really close to like, man, if this doesn't happen soon, like before my RFA fight, because there was a while where I was with Titan for a little bit and I fought for them once and then they signed me and didn't have fights for a while. And then no one wanted to fight me for like 2 years. I was just training. And then,
You trained for 2 years without a fight.
Yeah, there was a gap in there somewhere where, 2 years or something
God,
like that.
that's like my worst nightmare.
Oh, it was awful. And then I'm still in the room with like a lot of good guys and, helping them out. So I'm like, okay, I must be getting better because I'm doing, training's one thing too. It's fair to say like just because you train well with someone doesn't mean you would fight well. But I got a pretty good barometer usually of how well that correlates. And I'm like, man, I'm in here with tough guys like Anthony's in the room. Tyron would be down for camps. I was a big part of helping him for Darren Till especially and Robbie Lawler. So it's like the Robbie fight. I wasn't in the UFC yet. I'm like, man, if I can be a good asset for him, I got to be at least halfway decent. And so it just happened that right at the end there, before I was thinking about trying to like do something else or maybe put a little less attention to it, that I got that RFA fight. And after that, I was kind of thinking I'd get the call. And then I got the call and I told my job, I was like, hey, unless something crazy happens, I'm probably not going to be back. Like, this is my shot.
What was your job?
I was working in a shipping and receiving warehouse.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So we were like one of the only places that would put together workout equipment, like the big like machines, and then ship them whole. And then like pulling all their different stuff out of boxes on a forklift and stuff like that. And I was like, this is it. I got to do it now or never. And they were cool about it. They were like, hey, if it doesn't work out, you're always welcome back. But if not, like, go get them. And then I made those first couple. That first fight count especially because I got the bonus off that. Kind of set me up nice. And I don't spend on lavish stuff or anything. I just kind of live pretty simple. And it set me up to be able to just train and focus on the UFC. Have
you been able to enjoy a little bit of it more? I mean, you pretty much know now you're a staple, right? I mean, although I guess I guess anybody who has 3 or 4 losses in a row would have to start to worry. But at this point, do you feel comfortable with your position with the organization? And do you know that, like, because like I said, is like you've now gotten to the point where you have fans. You've now gotten to the point where like you're obviously good at what you do. So can you relax a little?
Nah, not really. I don't look at it that way.
It keeps getting harder if you ask me.
Right. Well, like, so my position, I got my last 3 fights were loss, win, loss. And even though they're controversial, it still says loss. No one cares about if it was close or not. The UFC wants exciting fights, so I got to make that a priority for sure.
So that's in your mind?
Oh, yeah. Like,
wow.
Number 1 is win. 1.5 is make it exciting.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Because we've seen, Elias Thurdo. He won a lot of fights. Still cut him.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him in a while, yeah.
And then, like, you saying that, like, I have fans now, I'm a little more solid. It's, like, kind of funny because I never think about it that way. And then you got Cory sitting here who's only ever lost once when you rank number 4.
Uh-huh.
And, like, still not even, like, a lot of people talking about him that much. So if they're not talking about him ranked number 4, I don't think I'm that well known, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's harder for littler guys. It really is. Like, if you're not a huge personality, but yeah, I wouldn't say I'm comfortable. I feel comfortable in the UFC as more as like I feel like I belong here and like this is my place of work, but I don't feel comfortable in my standing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's a good thing to always kind of still be hungry and yeah. But are you proud of what you've done at this point now? Because you probably had to prove it to yourself a little and that you belonged. Is there ever a sense when you come in of wondering, or do those thoughts seep in? Like, okay, now I really am in the UFC. Now I have to see if I belong there, or are you that confident that you belong there immediately?
Well, that first I was like, I got to prove to people and a little bit myself that this is where I should have been for a while. And then when you have, it helped too that when I got in there, there had already been people saying I should have been there in the first place and all this and that. And I think it's, from that aspect, easier to have it be that way than like, oh yeah, 5-0, 6-0, you're in there, you're doing so good. It's like, should you be there, should you not? Some guys should at 5-0 or 6-0, and that's fine. But I like that I put in time, and like I know for a fact, I wouldn't use the word deserve because I don't know if you really deserve anything, but I work to get here, and I'm gonna keep earning it every day.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because you see undefeated guys all the time, and it's a roll of the dice, to be honest. Where it's just like this, like, this guy could be the real deal, or this guy could just have knocked a couple people out really bad and got famous on YouTube and got signed.
Yeah. So,
isn't that weird?
So, to your point, like contenders, we got the Sugar Show coming up again. And, like, I don't think technically he's that good. Like, he's got a personality and stuff, but you would murder that kid.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I do too. But
Yeah, you're just waiting for my answer.
Yeah. Keep going.
But yeah, that's just like when you watch them from a pure fighting perspective, and like some people don't look that technically sound, right? And they're not, but they can fight. I think he can fight, but he still can't fight well enough to make up for the gaps that he has in a lot of stuff. And I'm not hating on the kid. Never met him personally. For all I know, he's a real cool dude, and I don't wish any ill upon him. It's just weird to me that you focus so much on that when there's people like you where the talent's there and everything else and the skill set, but we're just gonna ignore that. And it's not like you have boring fights either.
No, his fights are exciting as shit.
So I'm like, for Sugar Shane, it's like, well, and I think they want to build up the contenders thing because it's a way for them to sell stuff in a different show other than just the UFC, right? But then you're kind of taken away from, well, like you said, roll the dice is a better term for it. We'll see if this guy works out or not. If he doesn't, we get a little money off him in the meantime because enough people saw him that they'll get behind it because they're familiar. But if it does, awesome. If it doesn't, well, we'll just bring in the next one.
Yeah, I'm a very long-term minded guy, and I think that everyone gets lucky in their own ways, and I don't hate on anyone for getting lucky in their own ways. I think it's really great that O'Malley was able to have all of the stars line up for him, and now he's kind of a superstar with having only, I think, one or two fights in the UFC. And, but you know what? Like, on the other hand, I got incredibly lucky with the way that things worked out for me, where Cruz was supposed to fight Lineker. Cruz pulled out. My opponent on the same show pulled out. So I was scheduled to fight Lineker. That fight didn't happen, but it ended up being my next one after that. So that just completely took me from having 3 fights in the UFC all the way to fighting the number 8 guy.
Right.
I beat the number 8 guy, and now I get the number 3 guy who just came off of a loss. So, I mean, everyone's stars line up in different ways. So, I'd rather be where I am right now than be where O'Malley is right now.
Well,
so,
you took advantage of your situation. You beat a really tough guy. So it's like you can't deny that there's something there, right?
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, so you had that string of luck, and I guess this is like anything in the game. Now you're kind of on a string of bad luck that has nothing to do with you. Frankie decides to pull out to go fight someone else. You're left in the lurch. All of a sudden now it's almost been a year, and
Yeah, who's Frankie?
Frankie Edgar was supposed to fight Cory and then left to fight the Korean Zombie.
That's who it is. Oh, for that one.
Yeah.
I thought they just announced Frankie fighting somebody else new.
Not that I saw, but I try not to use my phone as much. But even something like that, man, it's kind of this like, I think that a lot of the really terrible things that have ever happened to me in my life have turned out to be really great things in the future. So who fucking knows? Like who knows if Frankie pulling out was actually a good thing?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a good thing because maybe my next opponent will be some guy that I wouldn't have been able to fight had I fought Frankie.
Dominic.
So or someone like that. So I I try to like, I don't even know what the hell I want because shitty stuff has happened and it's turned out really well, and things that I thought were going to be really awesome for me didn't turn out as well, like this podcast. So
this podcast is just we got Gerald Meerschaert, my friend. You brought up something that I always like to talk about, which is you said you're aware that that you have to put on an entertaining fight. And Cory, one of the fun things that he told me that I didn't really understand gets to the fighters is that you can hear the boos. That if it's a boring fight, you'll hear the boos and you'll start to fight differently and stuff. I didn't know that you guys could actually let the audience affect you. Can you hear them when you're fighting and you hear certain things yelled out that you don't even know why you hear it?
Yeah, you can definitely hear the reactions. And that, sometimes it'll affect you. Like you hear the boos coming and like you think you're trying to get a position or something like that. And in your head, you're like, man, I thought that was pretty exciting fight so far. And you hear boos, like, well, I guess not. And that's when you gotta like. It helps me being a veteran because I'm so used to that, right? I'll hear that and like, okay, I'll throw something hard, but I'm not gonna like spinning back fist for no reason and get like taken down or something stupid because you guys like don't know what you're looking at. Like the MMA audience has definitely improved, but it's not like even boxing where like they won't boo if it's slow. They'll just watch. And if something cool happens, they'll cheer, but there's not as much booing, whereas MMA is kind of unique in that way where there's immediate feedback, good and bad, on everything. Like, they'll be booing 1 minute and then cheering the next. And, like, I've seen even when Woodley fought Till and we did open workouts, and there's not quite the same as a fight, but same, like, group of people, right? If they're the hardcore fans that show up for the workouts, they're definitely going to be at the fights.
Yeah.
And it was the strangest thing ever to me that we got done with open workouts, and they're all standing there, and then Woodley starts walking away, and everyone's booing, like going nuts. And I was like, man, I think they want you to come back and take pictures and stuff. He turns around, boom, flips on a dime. Ah, everyone's his best friend. I was like, what the hell is
Whoa,
that?
really? That sounds weird.
It was the strangest thing because it was a big stadium too. Like they have half its section off for open workouts, but they're like, oh, boo, you suck. Da, da, da. I was like, and I told him, I was like, I think they just want you to sign things. He turns around, starts walking back. Oh, yeah, Tyler Woodley's the champ. I was like, you fickle motherfuckers. Like, really? That's all it took? Oh, yeah, it was interesting.
What was the organization you were in before you came to UFC?
I fought all over the place, but the last fight before the UFC, I fought for the last RFA middleweight title.
And what kind of production is that? Is it compared to the UFC? Meaning, is it televised?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
It's LFA now.
It's LFA, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you know LFA, right?
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
LFA.
Carrington fought on it.
Yeah.
It's the exact same show. I think just it was two different promotions, Legacy and Ring of Fire, just
Okay.
joined together, and now it's. But yeah, RFA was like kind of the big one back then. I
And
would
so,
argue.
for someone who had done so many local shows, what was the immediate thing that you noticed that was different about the UFC as soon as you got to the UFC?
The fight week and like how much everyone takes care of you so well.
I remember I was like, damn, this is a nice hotel.
Oh, well, not just the hotels, but like the staff is so cool. And like a lot of people say if you need something, get a hold of me, right? But they really mean it. Like just today I had like a stupid mundane question that I probably just could have kept to myself, but I asked Dean and Roger anyway, and they got right back to me, answered their phones immediately, went above and beyond. They're always really cool. All the production staff, Heidi's always on top of stuff, always asking for like your walkout song and everything. Like the staff here doesn't get enough credit because they do an amazing job, and we literally have to worry about nothing, especially being in Vegas with the PI. Like they tell you where to go, when to be there. We'll get everything situated. Here's all your clothes and stuff. Just be at this place at this time and make weight, and that's it.
Is Fight Week exciting? Is it? Because I guess what I'm saying is there's months and months of just training and doing mundane stuff, and then all of a sudden there's that one little section where you just feel like hyped every morning you wake up. Do you enjoy it, or are you waiting for it to finally be over so you can relax again?
You try to enjoy it while it's there. I think for the beginning part of Fight Week, for most people, it's just like getting done with weigh-ins. Like this one, I'm actually pretty pumped for the fight itself. So like I'm still waiting to like be able to eat real food and like hyped about that, of course, because there's always going to be that part of it, right? And that's usually like the biggest battle is, I got to go do all this stuff and cut weight at the same time, especially for the bigger guys not bigger in weight, but like guys that come in bigger that don't manage it well.
Right.
But for me, this one especially, I'm like excited for the fight itself, and it's just making sure I stay strict on the diet, get my workouts in, and then having the fight. And really, for me, more it's not having the fight week over so much, but you think about you don't want to do it too much, but you think about celebrating a little bit, and then the time after the fight, you get to go back home, spend time with.
Is that the best feeling ever?
Oh, it's so good, especially
with a win.
Yeah, spend time with the wife or the fiance, whoever. You go hang out with your friends. I usually only take about a week off of training if I do, and I'll go like do whatever at night. It's all the stuff you don't normally get to do, right? You go out, have a couple drinks, have a nice dinner somewhere, go see movies and stuff. When like normal people are out doing that kind of thing that you're never there for because you're training all the time.
Yeah.
So that enjoying that kind of stuff is, I'm really looking forward to that afterwards and just kind of decompressing.
Yeah. Do you still have goals of being the champion?
Oh yeah.
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 Does every
definitely.
fighter still have to have that in them? Is that something you need?
I think you can, and this is probably going to sound kind of backwards, but I think you can enjoy what you do enough that, like, I truly believe some guys aren't that concerned about it. Like, I think some guys,
I'm not very concerned with it. To be honest.
well, that's the pressure I got from Cory. Is they're like, I just love fighting, and I'm probably 60-40 leaning towards the beltway. But like, if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna make sure I do everything in my power to like that. I tried everything I could, but the idea is to leave it all out there, and like as long as you just like for a fight, you leave no stone unturned. If that was my career, that was my career. You know
That's
what I mean?
beautiful.
Something happens to me today, it's like I went out there, I did the damn thing. I can't say I'd have no regrets because there's always little things here and there you wish you could have had the opportunity or done something a little different. But it's like,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, who cares? Like, are you happy doing what you're doing? Yes. Well, then keep doing it. And like, I think having goals are important, but it doesn't have to be the belt. For me, that's still a long-term goal, but it's not like I'm more of a realistic person. I know it's not that close. You know what I mean? I'm not even ranked in the top 15. I don't have any kind of streak going. Even if I win this fight, it's not within grasping distance. You know what I'm saying?
But you still keep in the back of your head that you can put that together. You could have a 7-fight winning streak,
Right.
and all of a sudden it's that story that people go, Gerald Meerschaert all of a sudden is like
Right.
winning 6 fights or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that I think is one of the most exciting aspects of sports, and that's this most exciting aspect of life is that no story is ever not done being written.
Right.
You know.
Well, and then for me too, in that respect, you know, everyone loves to see the young undefeated prospect come up and win, right? Well, for me, it's definitely going to be more of the Cinderella Man story, where like, you know, I've had a rocky road on the way there, but all of a sudden you start tearing it up. Like that's just how it's going to end up being for me, no matter what. Like even if I win every fight till I'm done from now on, you know, I've already had those lumps and like had those ups and downs. So no matter what, that's how people are going to look at it, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with showing people that, you know, you don't have to be quote unquote perfect, and that you can still achieve greatness.
I like that. Sounds like a good point to end on.
Oh, I had one more thing. Just let me. I mean, Joel, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no.
Man, why are you trying to cut me off? Oh, we have another guest coming in, right? Just real fast. Oh man, you got my flow going. I think that's why people have loved Bisping. I think because he was a guy that, in a sense, showed you, and then we'll end on that showed you that like. He still stayed in the game. It was pretty obvious he wasn't going to be champion ever again, and he's a world champion now. And you never know, and that's the thing is, if you're in the game, you never know what things are going to happen.
That's
that are going
right.
to lead you to that. So, you know, so I'm going to call you Gerald Bisping. From now on.
Hey, I'm not mad about it.
We'll be rooting really hard for you, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming
This
by
was
and
fun.
doing this
Yeah,
with
thanks
us.
a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Podcast.